said for Dr. Anna?
You want me to be here at 2?
Yeah, 2 o'clock.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Mic test.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
3. 1, 2, 3.
Here we go. Here it is.
Yes, here we are.
Eat more beef. Eat more beef.
Beef Bootlegger.
There
Keto
it
is Key film coming up.
Here we go.
Right here. Keto is Key.
Oh, man. Are we
Cameras are rolling.
We're rolling.
All right.
All right.
Excellent.
Kyle, welcome to Beef Bootlegger's Chophouse.
Thanks, Stu.
What brings you to Meat Stock?
I'm working on a documentary film called Keto is Key, and it's about the ways that ketosis is being used to treat chronic illness. So we know about a lot of the benefits of ketosis for weight loss, and we feel better when we're in ketosis, a lot of us here at this conference especially, but there's a deeper use for the state of ketosis that a lot of scientists around the country and around the world are really digging into, and Dr. Thomas Seyfried is one of them up at Boston College, and we're learning, and we're actually seeing now that cancer patients are using ketosis as a baseline therapy for their cancer treatment, as well as diabetics, people with excess visceral fat. So that's what the film is about.
Amazing, amazing. And how long did it take you to produce the film?
We've been working on it for 2 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Caroline Moise is the director. She started it 2 years ago. I joined the project about 1 year ago. We've got a dozen of the top researchers and scientists in this space, Dr. Seyfried, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, Dr. Sean O'Mara, Dr. Annette Bosworth, and others. And we follow 6 patients as they use ketosis to treat the diseases that I mentioned.
Wonderful. You got all the heavy hitters on board. That's great.
Exactly.
Now, how did you get introduced to the project?
Well, sadly, my mom was diagnosed with glioblastoma 2 years ago. And when we learned that she was diagnosed, we found out that the life expectancy for a GBM patient is 8 to 15 months. It's the deadliest cancer known to science. So when we found that out, we had trouble accepting it as a family, and we wanted to look for other ways to treat the cancer other than radiation and chemotherapy, which is the standard treatment, along with a brain resection, a surgical resection for GBM. So I found Dr. Seyfried's research by looking around online, and he's a legendary researcher for 40 years now. As I mentioned, he's at Boston College, and he responded to my email right away and told me some books that I could read, some lectures I could watch, some people that I could get in touch with to help get my mom into a state of ketosis, because that's, as I said, the baseline treatment for treating cancer. Now, Dr. Seyfried's research reveals that cancer cells can only use 2 fuels to remain viable. They cannot.
One is sugar, right?
One is sugar, glucose, and they cannot survive without access to sugar, glucose, and the amino acid glutamine. So it stands to reason that you would reduce both of these fuels when treating a cancer patient. So the first step is to get into ketosis, and the next step is a bit more complicated. It's to use a glutamine inhibitor to reduce the level of glutamine. There are a couple of other components to the protocol that Dr. Seyfried lays out as well. But that's how I got into it. Sadly, my mom's cancer was too advanced for us to help her with this treatment, and she died just 7 weeks after. Thank you. She was just 7 weeks after she was diagnosed. So, one of the things that she told me when she was sick, and we found Dr. Seyfried's research, and we were watching his lectures. My mom was always really into film and storytelling and photography, and she told me during her sickness, she's like, we're going to get through this, we're going to survive it, and then we're going to go out and make a documentary film about it. So I'm getting the chance to do that, sadly, without her, but yeah.
Well, it's personal, and she's still along, with the journey.
I think she is.
As well.
I think she is.
Also, we lived through our parents. My father recently passed away. Now, a bit more natural, perhaps. He was 83 and so on. But I like to think that, I'm bringing him, with me on this journey about beef as well.
Yeah, I love that.
So we get some passion from our parents. We bring them along.
Yeah,
certainly.
We do. It's quite a motivator. I remember the feeling when she was diagnosed and we came home and we were grim. The feeling that I had when I discovered Dr. Seyfried's research, and I realized that there is a whole body of work out here that's more accessible and that's more functional. Like, you think about the treatment that you give to a cancer patient. You poison them with chemical therapy, and you give them radiation. In every other context of the human life, we try to avoid radiation.
Right.
When we get sick, we radiate the brain, especially, which is extremely, extremely detrimental. So these treatments are not founded in efficiency. And when I found Dr. Seyfried's research, he's really looking at the cancer cell from a perspective of energy generation. How does a cell produce energy? And if the cancer cell has access and can only reproduce using these 2 fuels, if we restrict those 2 fuels, now we're killing the cancer cell from its energy source,
right?
Which makes way more sense to me.
They're going to die instead.
Yeah, exactly. And that just made so much more sense to me. And I felt an amazing sense of hope when I discovered this. And as I said, my mom's cancer was too advanced. It was in too much of a central location in the brain for us to overcome it. But there are cases of people, many cases of people. Pablo Kelly is one. He lived with GBM, glioblastoma, for 10 years just by using the keto diet. There's an individual in our film. Her name's Robin Fargus. She had an end stage, so that's beyond stage 4, end stage cancer, metastasized all over her body. She's still alive 8 years later. Fantastic. So people are using this, and we're seeing it more and more. Now we do have to get to the clinical trials phase in order to really help this treatment infiltrate throughout the FDA and the NCI, the National Cancer Institute. But we're in the beginning stages of doing that.
I think also bringing awareness, right? So that's why you're here as well. But bringing awareness is going to let other people that maybe wouldn't have found you and those particular protocols otherwise.
That's right.
Right. So they're kind of hidden. You have to seek out. But maybe that way more people will have it. They'll get to, get into the treatment a little earlier, and maybe save some lives.
That's exactly right. And prevention as well. Like guys who consider themselves healthy, like you and me, if we can get into a state of ketosis, maybe for a few days or a week at a time, now we're restricting any potential access that a cancer cell would have to glucose during that.
Do you find in that thing it might be a little bit of a cleanse before it gets going?
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations about how frequently to do it? I mean, obviously, if you could do it all the time, but maybe someone was just getting started. Do you have a recommendation on how someone might just get off a go?
Yeah, and maybe it's not necessary all the time either. Like I find that some amount of carbohydrate is good for me pre-workout, post-workout, right? In order to get that glycogen that I need. Because again, I don't consider myself an ill person. There's no reason for me not to eat a carbohydrate from a sweet potato or a banana or an apple or something like this. But recommendations, I would say. I would say test your blood to begin with. There are these applications or devices, I should say, that are available online. Keto Mojo is one of them. You buy it, it's $100, and you start to test your blood, and you'll notice that if you reduce carbohydrates, let's say you eat a banana in the morning and a sandwich in the afternoon, you take the bread off the sandwich, you remove the banana, you'll start to notice after 6 or 12 hours without carbs that your ketones will come up very gradually, 0.1 millimolar, 0.2 millimolar, and the glucose will gradually come down. But I think testing the blood, which is very easy to do, it's a simple finger prick, it's not anything complicated, you can see the adjustments in your blood, and that can be motivating. You can say, oh yeah, I actually changed my diet, and it changes the quality of molecules in my blood.
If you get in that feedback loop so quick as
That's
well,
right.
It's kind of nice.
That's right, the feedback loop, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
What else was part of your personal journey? So you're obviously a good-looking guy, very fit.
Hey, thanks.
What's your diet?
Yeah, I try to eat about 240 grams of protein per day. I'm 6'4", 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And I like to work out a lot, 3-4 times a week. So like I said, I eat close to 3,000 calories per day, 240 grams of protein, usually about 80 grams of carbs or so per day, 100 grams depending if I work out that day. So that's been my regimen. I played basketball back in the day, Division I basketball at Fordham. So I learned a lot about exercise science at a young age and eating and the importance of that.
It's got to be helpful, learning early.
Yeah.
I'm 49. I didn't really get into eating well and working out till my 40s.
Yeah.
Now I look good and I did all of that, so it's
You
better
do look good,
with a
yeah.
late start.
What kind of workouts you do? You got those big arms here.
I'm actually just moving big coolers of beef. So we started the beef business 18 months ago.
Nice.
Ramping any business or maybe making a film or whatever, you don't have a lot of spare time. So I'm actually, getting in my reps, moving, doing a bit of physical labor, moving around. But I feel good. Also, eating a great diet is such an important foundation.
Yeah.
Now I also used to work out a lot. So I think once you put on the muscle, you put on the shape, you can hold it. So for years I was working out. I used to weigh 225. I was really big, really muscular. Now I'm a bit leaner. Also, as you get a bit older, I think losing some of that weight helps your joints and helps some other things.
Are you a carnivore?
I eat whatever, but I've got $10,000 worth of high-quality steak in my freezer all the time, so I'm pretty much eating meat.
Nice. You're ready for the apocalypse even.
Ready for the apocalypse, certainly. I was a big conspiracy guy when COVID hit and all of that. I was very into all of these things. Maybe it's happening in slow motion. I still have a lot of distrust in the world,
Sure.
A lot of distrust in the food supply. So having a great meat supply as well is certainly important. Now in Florida, once in a while, you have a big storm that goes through as well. So I've got generators and all these things to keep, the meat safe and frozen and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do eat a heavy meat-based diet for sure.
Yeah, so you're getting a lot of protein. You're probably 150 grams of protein at least
Easily.
every day without even calculating it.
Easily. Now, what about you? So you're eating the protein, you're eating those 260 grams. Is it like ground beef mixed with steaks or whatever? Do you have a particular favorite?
I love the brisket.
There
I
you
love
go.
to take that 10-pound brisket, put it in the oven at like 270, cook it for 6 hours, comes out nice and tender. You get that fat,
Yeah.
and I can eat it for like 5 days after that. I love that aspect
Good for
of
you.
it.
That's the brisket meal prep right
Yeah,
there.
brisket meal prep. I love the ribeyes. The New York strip, I don't know if I'm a skilled enough cook. It comes out a little tough when I cook it. I need a few tips. But those are some of my favorite cuts. I love the ground beef. I love salmon, chicken.
Have you ever cooked salmon and chicken with beef tallow to cook it? Okay, great recommendation. So I got a 10-year-old. He loves salmon.
Yeah.
Now I'm cooking everything in beef tallow. You cook the fish with the beef tallow, game changer. Salmon
Nice.
chicken can be a little bit boring.
Yeah.
Add a little pizzazz, but it also is a nice cooking vehicle that just puts a little bit more crisp on it, adds some flavor. So that's a little bit of a hack right there.
I like that. I eat a lot of yogurt, kefir.
Yeah.
I eat some berries, some bananas, peanut butter, dark chocolate. That's like 80% of my diet right there. All that stuff I just mentioned.
Now you said that you came in from overseas. Where's home right now?
Yeah, so I grew up in Connecticut, so not far from Boston College, where I went up and I actually sat in on Dr. Seyfried's class for a semester just after my mom passed. That's where I met Caroline. She came to Boston College to film Dr. Seyfried for this upcoming film. But to answer your question, we decided to finally escape the winter in Connecticut, brutal winter up there. Yeah. And we went down to Mexico, the Riviera Maya, the coast of Mexico, to post-produce the film. So the film's all shot. We've done over 16, 17 interviews, 12 professionals, and then patients. And now we're just working on editing the film, and we're looking to come out with it in the next 3 months or so.
Fantastic. And where would we see it? Is it going to be mostly online for the distribution or shown in theaters as well?
Yeah, it'll probably be both, but you can go to ketoskeymovie.com and you can get it directly there. So you can get it directly from us if you want.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And if someone's interested in just learning more about you as an individual, Kyle, where can they find you?
Yeah, go to Keto is Key movie on Instagram. You'll see me there. I'm starting to do a lot of like talk to camera stuff on Instagram to share some of the advice and information I've learned from all these doctors and professionals that I've interviewed.
Wonderful. Well, I came here to meet great people, and you're the first guy that I met this morning. Thanks for coming. Anything else you want to share just as we close up?
I think, tell me about your audience a little bit. Who are we talking to out here?
Yeah, well, we're talking to meat eaters. So people who love great beef. A lot of people who are here found carnivore and whatnot through some, health issues or something, and this is almost the last refuge for them to go. Traditional medicine hasn't worked. So certainly people who eat meat because they need to stay alive or to live a healthier lifestyle. I think also people who are curious, about joining this lifestyle. Yeah. A lot of people maybe are interested, but it can be overwhelmed and all of that. So we just want to make steak really accessible. We also want to make it a lot of fun. So we do a lot of events. The steaks are so amazing that we have it. It's not just eating a steak at home on a cutting board and you're doing the individual carnival type thing, but it's really, our steaks are so amazing, they taste so good that we want you to share that and create a great experience, either with family and people that you love, the buddies that are coming over to smoke cigars, maybe you're having a graduation party or something to celebrate. We also do a lot with gifting. So people who are businessmen, the steaks are the highest quality, so they're a bit expensive, but maybe they got a $50,000 referral and they want to send something back, not a gift card, not a bottle of wine, but this amazing experience for that particular person to enjoy. So we're just making it accessible. And we also do a little bit of tutorials on how to cook. Someone might say, hey, I don't want to fuck up a $60 steak. I'm too intimidated to cook it. So we do some live cooking. We're just making really great steak accessible and having a good time while we do it.
I like that. I grew up, in southern Connecticut. My great-grandfather comes from Italy 100-plus years ago. He bought this farm. At the time, it was like 20 acres. But when I grew up on it, it was still 7 acres of farm. And we used to have big cookouts, pig roasts at Labor Day, and cooking ribeyes and big, smoking steaks and briskets. So I connect with that over like getting together over this really high-quality meat. There is one thing I'll say to you that, if you're really sick out there, if you're dealing with like diabetes or autoimmune issues, or if you're overweight and you just can't seem to shed the weight, I think one of the things I would do if I were in that position, now it's not the case for me. I'm a 36-year-old guy. I've got good muscle mass, low body fat, all this. So I don't do as much fasting. But if I were sick, if I were really sick, I would experiment with fasting. Of course, do it safely. Look for the research. Dr. Seyfried's a great guy to look to for that. Dr. Annette Bosworth is another one to look to for that. Check them out. But even short fasts of 24, 36 hours, and then you gradually start to extend it from there. There's so much cellular repair that happens during a fast. I know you know about this, but you get the autophagy where essentially the healthy cells break down and consume the dead and damaged cells. You get stem cell production. So there's so much therapeutic benefit that I believe we evolved along with between our feasts.
Yeah.
And I think fasting is a really powerful tool, especially if you've got some of these really intense illnesses.
I'm glad that you brought that up. Also making it accessible with the 24 or 36. Again, like trying it, getting comfortable with it.
Right.
I found on day 2 is where I get a little bit cranky, but once you get past that second day as well, you can take on that third day. And again, you'll start to feel better, but also your face will slender. There's certain pieces of your body that are kind of getting eaten away. Just makes you look better, feel better, and again, you get a reset. And I'm part of a men's group where about 12 of the guys are doing it routinely once a month, and they love it. And that's also a good way you can kind of break that fast. You're going to enjoy your food a little bit more.
Yes.
So you just got to conquer the body a little bit and those cravings, and then it's going to help you as an individual, your mindset. You might be able to apply that to other things beyond your diet as well.
That's right. And it opens up a lot of different connectivity between you and your brain. And you're right, enjoying a nice meal after a 16, 18-hour fast is something special compared to eating every 6 or 10 hours like we typically do.
Yeah, 100%. My man, Kyle, what a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Stu.
Good luck with the film. Good luck with everything.
Beef stew. Thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, man. Great.
All right.